The null coalescing operator, or double question mark, is a great operator for reducing the complexity of your code and making it shorter and more compact. It works by evaluating the expression on the left-hand side of the operator, but if the result of that is null, it then returns the result of the right-hand side of your operator. Now, this is easier to show than to explain, so let's have a look at some example code. Here we have a console application. Let's add a method for testing. We've called it double. It takes a nullable integer, and as the name suggests, the intention is to return the number that comes in times by 2, doubled. Now, because it's a nullable integer, we have to handle the case where it is indeed null. So you can see here that if the number is not null, we return the value multiplied by 2. If it is null, then we just fall back to a default value of 0. Simple enough. So let's change our code to invoke it. You can see here num1 and num2. We try it with null and we try it with a test number of 42 and output the result. This code is pretty simple and straightforward, but we can simplify it significantly by using the null coalescing operator. Let's comment out our existing code and then use the null coalescing operator instead. So this is much simpler and more compact. If number is not null, it just gets passed back as the result of this sub-expression. If it is null, it uses the right-hand side of the operator, which for us is 0. And in either case, we multiply by 2 and return it. Very simple. And now we can delete the existing code and we have a much smaller, more compact example. We don't have to return a number directly from the right-hand side. Here's another example. In this case, we have a public property called name, and we want to ensure that it's never null because it doesn't make any sense for the name to be null. So in this case, on the assignment, the set, we're saying that the name is equal to, and then we're using the value passed in, and the null coalescing operator, if it's null, is going to execute the right-hand side. And this time, instead of returning a number, we're just going to throw an exception. We want it to say argument null exception because we don't want null. So here's an example where we don't actually have to provide a value. We can, in this case, throw an exception, but you could call a method or do anything else you like. Let's add some code to test this works. We can see here the first line we assign John Doe. This should work as expected. The second time we do the assignment of null, this should throw an exception. Before we run this code, though, I have a little extra bonus. The operator can be used with assignment. Let's show you a quick example. Let's change the code here. So we're starting off with the example being null, and then we're going to show an example of how we do assignment in line. So what we're saying here, if example is null, which it will be, we'll execute the right-hand side and assign a new instance. This can be shortened. We can make this just like this. We can now execute our application. Here we go. The two numbers were assigned as expected. Null was defaulted to 0 and 42 was doubled to 84. John Doe was assigned to our new property. And finally, the exception was thrown as we hoped it would be because you cannot assign a 0 without throwing an exception, as we saw below. Hit the like button if you found this useful. Until next time, keep on trucking.